Amidst the dense traffic on a scorching afternoon, a tiny sloth stood trembling by the roadside, its soft fur ruffled by the rush of passing vehicles. Every roaring engine, every blaring horn seemed to magnify the overwhelming danger of the asphalt stretch ahead. With unwavering determination, the sloth ventured onto the searing road, moving at a pace so slow that each step felt like a profound act of courage. Cars whizzed by, some drivers pausing just long enough to glimpse the small creature inching forward with painstaking effort. Onlookers at the roadside grew increasingly concerned, some reaching for their phones to record the sight, others too anxious or uncertain to intervene. In the midst of this tension, a traffic policeman from a distance noticed the commotion and hurried over. At first, he could see only the vehicles slowing around a single spot in the road, but as he approached, he caught sight of the sloth, quivering, overwhelmed, and only inches from harm. Instinct kicked in, and he raised his arms to halt the oncoming cars. Tires screeched as startled drivers obeyed, allowing the policeman to step into this makeshift circle of safety. Unsure whether picking up the sloth might startle it further, he crouched low, extending his hand and speaking softly in an effort to calm the terrified creature. It blinked anxiously, uncertain of what to do, and in its panic, began to turn back. Recognizing the sloth's mounting fear, the policeman gently wrapped his hands around its torso, mindful of the sharp claws. The creature tensed, but did not resist too violently, perhaps sensing that the stranger meant no harm. A hush fell over the gathering crowd, as though everyone collectively held their breath, watching this fragile moment of trust unfold. Step by careful step, the policeman carried the sloth across the road to the shade of nearby trees. The relief in the cooler air was almost palpable, a contrast to the heat radiating from the pavement. He lifted the sloth toward a low branch so it could choose its next move. Clutching the bark, the sloth paused, its eyes drifting past the policeman's shoulder and back toward the chaotic road. Something about its lingering gaze unsettled him. He noticed that despite having reached safety, the sloth did not climb away. It hung there with a certain longing, as though it had left behind something important. Acting on an impulse shaped by both compassion and curiosity, the policeman returned to the grassy area where the sloth had first appeared. The road was still partially blocked by cars whose drivers waited, many of them now on foot to see what might happen next. Carefully searching through the tall grass, the policeman brushed aside the greenery until he heard a faint rustle. Parting the blades, he found a smaller, quivering baby sloth, too frightened to follow its mother onto the highway. The tiny creature clung to the grass for support, wide-eyed and trembling. The policeman felt a wave of relief mixed with a pang of sorrow as he imagined what would have happened if this little one remained undiscovered. With the same care he had shown earlier, he scooped the baby up, pressing it gently to his chest and making his way back to the forest. There, the mother sloth still lingered, her posture tense, her gaze never wavering from that original patch of grass. As the policeman approached with the baby, the adult sloth's eyes seemed to brighten, and she extended her arms as if reaching for her lost child. The baby sloth, no longer able to contain its need, stretched out to its mother. Their reunion was an unspoken but deeply felt moment of love and relief. The mother sloth hugged her baby close, the two of them exchanging tender gestures. Onlookers who had gathered around witnessed the gentle embrace and felt tears prick at their eyes, moved by the profundity of mother's love. Phones captured the scene, and subdued cheers rippled through the small crowd. The policeman, stepping back to give them space, felt a warmth he hadn't experienced in a long time. Though it was just a single act, it seemed to carry the weight of something bigger, a reminder of how fragile life is and how much impact a moment of kindness can have. With the baby safely returned, the mother and child remained on the low branch, clinging to each other, their breathing steadying as they recovered from the stress of the ordeal. Slowly, they began to ascend into the canopy, away from the roadside dangers. Yet the mother paused, looking back at the policeman one more time. Though no words were exchanged, there was an unspoken sense of gratitude in her watchful gaze. The policeman stood in silence, humility and awe blending on his face, until the pair disappeared among the leaves. Traffic gradually returned to normal, drivers maneuvering around the small crowd that lingered, reluctant to leave the poignant scene. News of this act of compassion spread quickly, shared on social media, and picked up by local reporters. People from near and far were touched by the policeman's kindness, commenting that faith in humanity was rekindled by such moments. Some suggested better road signs or wildlife corridors to prevent similar incidents. The policeman, somewhat overwhelmed by the sudden attention, brushed off the notion of being a hero. In his mind, he had only done what a caring person would do. He happened to be there at the right time, in the right place, with the ability to act. Still, he couldn't deny that the experience filled him with a renewed sense of purpose. Even as days passed, he found himself glancing toward the treetops, imagining the mother and baby sloth living in peace, away from the roar of vehicles. For the community that witnessed it, this event became more than just a sloth's rescue. It was a reminder that compassion does indeed thrive, even on the busiest highways of life. People who drove through that stretch of road afterward spoke of slowing down, being more watchful for signs of wildlife, and carrying in their hearts a newfound appreciation for the creatures that share our world. As the sun set on this story, the sloth family rested deep within the forest canopy, safe in each other's presence. The policeman, returning to his regular duties, felt the memory of that day guide him in small but meaningful ways, whether patiently helping an elderly pedestrian cross the street or ensuring no one rushed past a stray dog. Each time he thought of the gentle sloth, its slow but determined movements, and the unconditional bond between a mother and her baby, he was reminded that the pace of life doesn't dictate the depth of feeling. Sometimes it is in the slowest moments, in the smallest acts of kindness, that we find the greatest reflections of our shared humanity. In whatever language one might use, the message remained the same. Caring for the vulnerable, whether animal or human, can create a ripple of goodness that reaches far beyond a single road. And to anyone inspired by this story, there was a simple invitation. Carry that spirit of empathy with you. Share this account with friends who might need a spark of hope. Slow down when you drive, especially near wildlife habitats. Support local or global conservation efforts if you can. Every gesture, no matter how modest, has the power to change the course of a life. Ultimately, the sloth's journey across the asphalt was more than a struggle for survival. It was a testament to how empathy can transcend fear and how a single decision can unite a crowd of strangers in silent, heartfelt solidarity. It was proof that, whether through a direct act of rescue or a gentle reminder of responsibility, anyone can help shape a safer, kinder world. If you find comfort or inspiration in this story, remember that the smallest gestures can leave a lasting impact. If moved to do so, share it with someone you love or even subscribe to learn about future stories that celebrate compassion. Let this moment stand as a reminder that in a vast and often hectic world, tenderness and understanding are still the ties that bind us all. And may the memory of that afternoon, a mother sloth, her frightened baby, and the kind officer who ensured their reunion continue to resonate as a beacon of hope in hearts everywhere.